Welcome, minions of the Macabre. We have a very special guest tonight at the Macabre Mansion, and that is author, editor, not too scary a man, Christopher Sequeira. Chris, welcome all the way from Australia. We are living in a time of miracles.
We are indeed. It is an absolute delight to meet you, Mr. Macabre, and I guess you'll get that accent. We pronounce your last name Macabre down here. Is that acceptable?
I mean, it is perfectly acceptable. I've grown up answering to a variety of things.
I'm sure you have. Look, it's like some people pronounce my last name Sequeira, which is the Portuguese Brazilian sort of styling, but my ancestry is my father was a Goan Indian, and they tended to anglicise the pronunciation of Portuguese names to Sequeira. So there you go.
All right, you may call him either. When you show up, why we are bringing Mr. Sequeira in today which is now sadly what I shall probably say from now on, is because on Sunday, July 17th, am I remembering my dates correctly, at Dark Delicacies in Burbank, you are signing. This is your first appearance at the Dark Delicacies bookstore in Burbank, correct? With your new anthology, Caped Fear. Spooky.
Indeed. Yes, Dark Delicacies bookstore in Burbank in Los Angeles has very kindly allowed a signing session to happen this Sunday from 3 to 4:30, and I'm very, very lucky because it's not only the Caped Fear book that I edited with my pals Steve Proposh and Bryce Stevens for IFWG Publishing, but we're also doing the first pre-release appearance ever of another anthology, Dracula Unfanged, that I edited on my own. Some of the authors are a crossover. Well, one of the authors is a crossover in both books, and that is the marvelous, all pun intended, Jim Kruger, superstar of comics writing for Marvel and DC. Jim has a story in both books.
Yes, writer of Earth X with Alex Ross, if people need to recall his name. Yes, will he be at the signing on Sunday?
Jim's indicated to me that he will make it.
Well, then there you go, an extra bonus. Not only that, 2 books for the price of 2, really, but two volumes to be signed, at least 2 creators. I've heard rumor that others are still kind of circling around that have contributed to these anthologies, and you can purchase both at Dark Delicacies on Sunday. I have confirmed as well, you can pre-order Caped Fear right now if you wish to.
That's
on darkdel.org.
Dracula Unfanged, I think, goes on sale officially in the US. I think it's August the 9th or something like that. But we have arranged with Dark Delicacies to give them some special pre-release copies of the book. It's the exact same edition of the book, but they just come through as a special pre-release.
So but you get them earlier, and that's all that really matters.
That's right.
You date when you sign. Yes.
Indeed. So we're taking advantage of the fact that it's not exactly I take a trip to Los Angeles every week, although I've been that'll make twice this year already. I've ventured to your shores. I'm really making up for lost time from that pandemic when we couldn't leave the country here.
We didn't go anywhere either because we say follow up. You are here for this signing of Dark Delicacies, but that's not really why you are coming to California. It is because, of course, for the first time in 3 years, we will be having a full-blown ComicCon in San Diego. So you have a panel there. Would you care to discuss that?
Indeed. So I've been a regular Comic-Con goer for about 10 or 12 years. Love Comic-Con. I love the atmosphere and love the information that's available and the exciting previews and stuff. And this year, because Caped Fear came out this year, Dracula Unfanged came out this year, we applied to do a panel on those two releases for IFWG Publishing. Obviously, Cape Fear, as a collection of superhero horror stories, is perfectly themed for a Comic-Con panel, especially given some of the talent that's in this book being from the comics industry. We can come back to that. So the panel's going to be in room 9 on Saturday from 8 till 9 p.m. On the panel will be myself, Jim Kruger. My friend Mark Wade said he would try and make the tail end of it. He's doing the Brian Augustin memorial panel that runs to 8:30. So Mark's going to see if he can dash over to room 9 and join us for the tail end of our panel. So that would be nice. And as well as that, Vicky Adams, who did 2 illustrations for Dracula Unfanged, should be making the panel on the Saturday night. She should be making the Dark Delicacies launch as well. She's a Los Angelian as well. And I did invite Mr. Jim Starlin to the panel. He's going to be at Comic-Con, and he very nicely said he's not sure what his agent has completely got lined up for him over the weekend, but if he's free, he might come. I did manage to surreptitiously get a message to Mr. George R.R. Martin through one of his friends, and let him know that we're doing something. But obviously, Mr. Martin is in high demand, and whether he
he foolishly announced he was about to finish the next Song of Ice and Fire book, and so if he appears at Comic-Con, he may be mauled and maimed.
Yeah,
so
he's listed on one panel, but you know, a guy like him, he's going to be probably doing media stuff from dawn till dusk, I suspect. But I did try and get an invite out to him. So whether because I mean,
yes, let's explain why Mr. Starlin and Mr. Martin are both involved.
Yes, so this book is mostly new fiction. And some surprising, exciting new entrants of fiction. We'll talk about the Jim Kruger and Colin Doran stories in due course. But there's a couple of reprints in here, and one of the reprints is George R.R. Martin and Jim Starlin working, and this is the only comic book story in this book. The rest is prose. Dr. Weird. George R.R. Martin and Jim Starlin, rare 8-page story from before both of them had careers. So it was a
really almost like from fanzine mode.
Yeah,
I mean, I know it was a professional imprint back in 70.
That's right. The company was called the Texas Trio, and as the name suggested, there were 3 gentlemen from Texas.
And if you're the United States, that's spooky enough on its own.
Yes, I've been following that news. But so they had a little comics company, and they paid people like Jim Starlin and George R.R. Martin to write and draw the characters, which I think the 3 of those guys had largely created. And I think they're all no longer with us. And the copyright on this material actually belongs to the folks who have that Big Bang comics that have been around for decades.
Yes.
What is it, Gary? I'll get it wrong. It's Ed DeGeorge and Gary Carlson own the IP from Texas Trio and Dr. Weird, etc. So we talked to them, but we gained Mr. Starlin and Mr. Martin's permission to reprint this, forgotten masterpiece. And it is a masterpiece. It's like George R.R. Martin's written the whole story as a truly lush, demented, Lovecraftian.
It is a bizarre piece. I've had the opportunity to read the entire thing. So just for the sake of, just a little hint so that people could come and enjoy it for themselves. Not only do you have George R.R. Martin and Jim Starlin doing, that is a reprint from decades ago, seeing a glimpse into their youth and unformed, but clearly about to become huge in the industry. You have a reprint of a story by Neil Gaiman, which is always a plus. And you have Colleen Doran, who often collaborates with Neil Gaiman, her very first prose story, original to this anthology.
She was so kind enough to agree to write a short story for us, her first all prose work. And it is, as we say down here, it's an absolute cracker. It is brilliant. It is incredibly visceral, hits a lot of great notes for fans of classic superhero stylings, particularly from the 60s, I would say.
I will say this actually came up on my Facebook feed. Someone asked what would happen if a certain character from a certain super team from the 30th century ate flesh, assuming that all his people were vegetarians or other matter Aryans, I didn't mean to say Aryans. Sorry. And I said, well, you need to read Caped Fear because Colleen Doran has just addressed that question most directly. And that, being a longtime fan of that group, I had difficulty going to sleep afterwards.
Yeah, no, look, indeed, it's just brilliant. I mean, she's taken those sort of that sort of context of a legion of superheroes type of team,
yes.
And she's spun it in its own fresh directions. It doesn't read as retro 60s nostalgia stuff. The characters are very contemporary and modern, and the point of view character in particular, she's a really interesting character, and but she's done something that is totally demented and dark, and there's ferocious horror action going on in there. Just it blew my and my fellow editors' minds. It was just such a good read.
I'll be honest. It is my absolute favorite out of the book.
It's something special, something special indeed. But we're very lucky with this book. I mean, it's an all-star. There's not, everyone in it is somebody who's known for being a major contributor to science fiction, fantasy, and horror. We've got. I was able to use, through the graces of Robert Bloch's daughter, his
a Lefty Feep story. Yes,
that's right, Lefty Feep superhero story, an authentic Robert Bloch superhero story. So it's great that's in there. And we've got Joe R. Lansdale, who people from comics and horror know very, very well. Joe R. Lansdale had a story, and there had been a comic book version of it, but the original story had never been run anywhere. So that was that
was fascinating to me, because as I was reading it, I realized, somewhere in the darkest recesses of the Macabre Mansion, there is a long box with those comics.
With the comic book version of that story. So we've got the first prose version of it. What else is in there? William F. Nolan, one of the last things he ever wrote was exclusive for us. He's done a spin on the superhero and the superhero with an evil doppelganger. He did a story called Double Space. It was just lovely, and it was very sad that he passed away before the book came out. But that was something special. Got a brilliant story by a writer, Karen Harbour, Just Another Day by the Potomac. Just this clever and very modern fusion of politics and dark superheroics. And that was a great piece because she skillfully wrote it so that it's not leftist or rightist, but it is definitely a commentary on contemporary politics as well. So there's some great stuff in there. And Jim Kruger wrote a story in there called Proof of Bullets, and that's another cracker. That is Jim's killing it these days on the short story front. I opened the door for him to do stuff and he's just gone in there and taken control of the room. This one is from the point of view of a supervillain, really frustrated, trying to get that final vengeance, reckoning, whatever, with their arch nemesis superhero, and he's turned that into a beautiful, psychological space to tell a horror story. So that's really good. We're very lucky with Cape Fear. It was a few years in the making and delayed because of COVID and all the rest of it. But it's been really exciting to have it get out there this year.
Excellent. And I if people cannot make Dark Delicacies on Sunday, but they will be at Comic-Con because people will be going to your panel, I'm sure. And we should mention Mark Wade, as you said, might sneak in on the evening of Saturday. He does the introduction to Caped Fear. But you are doing a signing on behalf of Mysterious Galaxy.
Indeed. So
at
I
Comic-Con
think
on Friday.
Yes, yeah. Now I think it's that close to confirmation, but I think it's Friday 5 till 6 p.m. at the Mysterious Galaxy booth at SDCC. There'll be me and Jim Kruger signing for an hour, and so we'll be signing. Just signing that one, okay? Cape Fear.
So Dracula Unfanged is a Dark Delicacy exclusive.
That's the Dark Delicacies, and Jim's in that one. Who else is in that one? Dacre Stoker, the great grandnephew of Bram Stoker, is in that one. Ramsey Campbell, Nancy Holder, Christopher Fowler, Jim, Ron Fortier, Will Murray, Lee Murray, a recent Bram Stoker award winner. So there's some terrific people on that one. And just to explain that one for the folk that turn up on Sunday, a couple of years ago I did this, Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Was Not, and it's multiverse stories of Sherlock Holmes. What if Sherlock Holmes's best friend, roommate and biographer was a doctor, but just not Dr. Watson? It could be any doctor from literature or history. The late Denny O'Neil did Sherlock Holmes and Doc Holliday. Philip Cornell did Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Jekyll, and on and on and on we go. That was so successful that we decided to keep doing, multiverse or what ifs, or we're calling them Imagine That stories. So imagine that Dracula was an immortal menace to society, but not because he was a vampire. In this series, people have gone, well, what if Dracula was an evil terrorist? What if he was a Cthulhu-like god? Will Murray did a clever one on that called Draculu. And things like Nancy Holder written a terrific thing about Dracula being a sea ghost. Christopher Fowler, this has also got 2 reprints in it, and they're both stories that are insanely clever. One's by Ramsey Campbell, one's by a British writer, Christopher Fowler. And I won't say what they're about, but it's just, they just exploded the idea of Dracula being something other than a vampire.
So what if Dracula had terrible table manners? I mean,
indeed,
that would be a menace to all of history. So we will see you on Sunday. I may appear in disguise as I say, a normal, because it's been a bit of a walk. But we look forward to, once again, Sunday at Dark Delicacies from 3 to 4:30. Friday evening at the Mysterious Galaxy booth at San Diego Comic-Con from 5 to 6 p.m., although check their schedule for it. Sounds like some of that might change, and talent available there may increase, for I believe you have posted about other people who say, well, maybe we'll come by. And then Saturday night at 8 o'clock, you have a panel as well. So,
indeed.
Thank you.
So it's a nice action-packed week I'll be having over there. I'm really looking forward to it. And so look, thank you so much, sir, for having me on your show.
It's a pleasure. And we shall see you soon.
Excellent.
Thank you for watching. Please be sure to creepily caress the subscribe button to be sure you don't miss out on any ghoulish gifts from the Fanboy Planet crypt. And who knows? I may one day find my way back out of the catacombs and into dim light again.